Welcome to this podcast, Holistic Creators, where we share our unique and universal stories about shaping the future for the 4 Ps: people, planet, purpose, and profit. My name is Swanette. I'm a mental coach and your host of this show. My intention for this show is to inspire you on your path to a holistic future. So welcome. Hello and welcome to my podcast, Holistic Creators. My name is Swanette and I'm your host. Today my guest is Jennifer Urezzio. She is the founder of Soul Language and Soul to Business. Welcome to my show.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much.
So I'm curious, what brought you to what you're doing now? What is your story behind that made you the person who are you now and what you're delivering as service right now?
Yeah, so I started off as a photographer and I got out of school when I was 20 and realized like I really like to eat and I didn't really want to do the photography thing. And I got a job in marketing and PR and my boss got pregnant. And so they handed me some material and went, go call these people, try to get a story in a magazine. And I did. I got the first placement in a national magazine and I was kind of hooked. And I spent 17 years in marketing and PR crafting my career. So I did what I like to do and I did what I didn't like to do, or I didn't. And by the end of my career, I wasn't allowed to talk to clients because I would tell them the truth. And I just knew that there was something bigger inside of me. I knew that this wasn't the only way. I just didn't know what that was. And so I started to pursue kind of guidance and coaching and assessment tools to understand like, okay, what is this feeling all about and how can we put it into human terms? And I was speaking at a conference about essential oils and life purpose. And I sat down next to this woman and she went, we're going to be friends. And I went, totally. And then my inside voice was like, why her? And not this other woman across the way? Like, what makes me want to hang out with this woman and not never see the other woman again? And what I heard was through divine guidance was, oh, that's soul language. And I was like, I don't know what that is, but we're going to keep asking questions. And before long, I had this paradigm that puts tangibility to that inside, puts tangibility to our essential nature. And I went back to that woman who was like, we're going to be friends. And I went, I'm doing this thing called soul language, and I'd love to identify your soul languages. What do you think? She's like, sure. And what I found out is we had soul languages in common. So of course I recognized her. Of course our stories were, even the details were different, but we really, really understood that experience that we were sharing. And now it's almost over 15 years later, and we're up to 30 practitioners, all utilizing soul language in their work. We've identified, over 5,000 people. And I hear the same thing. Oh my God, are you in my head? Oh my God, you put words to what I know. Even people who've been on the path, which is who I work with for, years and years and doing their work. When you connect to your soul, it allows you to really fine line things. It allows you to come in alignment in the smallest way, which creates more flow in your life, which creates an easier existence. So that's kind of the short version of how I got here.
Yeah. And I can imagine at the moment, a lot of people have this kind of whispering in their head telling them, oh, you're doing a job, this is for money, but there's something else inside of me that really wants to come out and wants to be released and wants to be brought into this world. And so one thing is, did you really have this kind of trigger moment that there was one point where you said, for example, this woman came into your life that made the change, or was it kind of more a process, a steady process that went to where you are? So
I mean,
one moment.
I think people call that the golden ticket moment, right? From Willy Wonka, right? Like that big woohoo. I think that was a big golden ticket moment, but I think there was a lot of little moments before there that led up to that kind of uh, apex moment. I don't think anyone's born overnight, meaning a star is never born overnight, right? There's always a series. You just don't know because we don't see the background of that star normally. So there were a lot of little moments. There was I remember when I first started this journey, I remember having a dream. And it took me, and when I tell you the dream, you're all going to be like rolling your eyes like, duh. But it took me weeks to analyze that dream, right? I had this dream where I was looking at my watch and I was like, I have to change my watch. And I literally weeks to decipher this dream. And I'm walking in New York City going, what does this dream mean? It's time to change. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm so dumb. And I'm walking in New York City and this guy's crossing, like we're parallel. And he looks at me, I was like, oh. Right. But it was so obvious once kind of I stopped to trying to kind of make sense of it in my little, you know, average brain and moved back into my real heart and my connection. So, I mean, that was a huge moment, but it was a little moment, right? I remember having a conversation with a friend of mine about his bug bite. And I said, listen, the bugs are talking to you. Like, you need to understand what's going on with that bug bite. Like, you need to go to the doctor and see why this bug bite's not healing. And, and he's like, okay. And he went, and what he realized through the doctor and, a whole series of tests, he had leukemia, right? Like, if he waited long, if he waited to something where it was really visible, like what would happen, right? So there was a series of those moments. I had one yesterday, which is great. I was driving, my boyfriend's car was, it's a long story, but his car needed to be traveled from our house to his parents' house. And it wasn't really in great operating condition. So I'm behind him and it's an hour drive to his parents. And I'm like, okay, I'm just going to tune in and I'm going to send radio messages to him and go, okay, we're almost there. Call me and go, Jen, we're approaching Pennsylvania. The car's good. You don't have to come for the rest of the ride. Like, you can turn around. Like, I'm just going to see if this works. And he calls like 10 minutes later. He's like, like the car's good. Like, do you want to turn around? And I'm like, okay, right. It's those moments you want to keep track of, because when you're in the moments of challenge, you can go, oh, look, here, I remember the good moments. I remember the connection moments, and to tap into those to move forward versus getting in that downward spiral of pain and suffering.
Yeah, and I think especially in this time, it's essential that we focus on what we can create and not being the victim of life and going down into the spiral. And I think we have all had some crazy years and enough of reasons why we could do that. But I think at the same time, it's also this awakening and to understand, okay, we are here for something bigger and stepping into that. And as you said, like looking back, there have been these moments where you said, okay, there was a synchronicity and there was one, and like someone or somehow a power or how you ever want to call it was driving you into what you're meant to be in this lifetime. So
Yeah, I mean, if we look back about, my experience, um, every experience that I've had, and you hear people say this all the time, has added to who I am and what I do now, right? Like, I'm a juggernaut of business uh, abilities. Sorry, it's really early, everyone here. Right? I'm a juggernaut of business abilities, right? So I know how to do a web page and I know how to do marketing. And I know, like, so when I work with a client, I'm not only helping them with the internal transformation, I can also go, okay, so let's talk about the tasks. Like, let's talk about the strategy. So, that tends to be really great for my clients because I can bring all of these gifts and talents right there. Those gifts and talents were built through my marketing and PR campaign, through me as an entrepreneur at the early stages going, all right, well, I'm new at this game and I don't know if I can pay someone. So let's just figure it out, right? Like, let's plow through it. Now, in order to build your company in a bigger way, you can't do all of those things because you're not focusing on what grows your business. But it does help with clients because I'll go, oh, here's the, and they're like, how do you know that? I was like, well, first I've done it. Second of all, I was taught it. And third of all, sometimes I just know. More often than not, I just know where to go. And that's being about being in the flow, about being in tune, about being connected, and asking your soul those questions. And when you don't know what question to ask, I always go, lead me, guide me, show me, right? And that allows things just to pop up. I was talking about this to my boyfriend the other day. And when the TV was on, I was like, you know what's really weird about my life? I go, I will say something, like if we're talking, or I'll say something out loud, or I'll talk to the dog, or in my head, and 2 seconds later, the exact same verbiage happens on the TV. And he goes, and then he handed me something, and I go, thanks so much. And the TV went, thanks so much. And I was like, see, right? Like those are moments of being in tune and being connected. And I think so often we're looking for those moments, or we're focused on those moments where we're disconnected. And our pain is kind of boring. All of our pain is the same. All of our suffering is the same. You know, they're just different kind of statements around it. Our connection is so unique. And when we explore that connection, that leads us to kind of harnessing our greatness and allowing that to be expressed in our everyday life, in our tangibility.
Hmm. I think some of our people who are now listening have this kind of inner wisdom, or perhaps even this kind of connection, but some don't have. So can you go a little bit deeper? How are you doing that? How are you connecting, and what exactly are you connecting to?
Yeah. Well, I connect to my soul and what I call my higher power, God. So here's how it kind of works for me. So I use soul language to do that connection, which is I have three core energies of soul. We all do. My mission, how I feel that mission, and my soulful personality. So I connect to that team, which is really connecting to my soul, but it's a way to connect to your soul where you know that you don't have to worry about, oh, is this my mind? Is this my imagination? So it's actually a process to do that connection. So I connect to my soul. I connect to the divine, which I call God. And then I also connect to my metaphysical support team, which are guides, teachers, angels, and ancestors. And then I ask questions. And then I help align my humanness with those answers. So meaning all of those things that are out of alignment with my truth. So those happen through pain, through suffering, through bad experiences, through trauma, right? And it's about aligning more and more with that truth, with that soul, with that divinity in order to express. So that's, sorry, the dog's going to bark in a moment. So that's what I teach people how to do. And, but you can start off very simple. You can start about just tuning into your heart and simply asking, what do I need to know today? And make some notes if you're just starting this process. Get out a journal. And I know I roll my eyes. I don't like to journal either. But get a journal, jot some notes down. And at the end of the day, notice what your heart or your soul said. And then you can start to understand your database, meaning you can start to understand if you get visuals, if you have in-body sensations, if you hear things. Your soul and whatever you call your higher power is going to speak to you, speak in quotes, in a way that you understand. So you have to understand your database, because I think so many people want it to look or feel like somebody else's database. So my soul talks to me in visuals, in movie references, in Star Trek references, in cartoon references. Why? I love all that stuff. I get all that stuff, right? I've had in conversations with clients, I've had a word come in and go, I'm hearing this. I don't know what this means. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing it right. And they'll go, oh yeah, that's Russian and it means blah, 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 blah. And they're like, I totally get that. Right. So you have to understand how your soul speaks to you before you can actually help those gifts support other people, because you'll keep in this circle of doubt and then in this circle of mistrust, which doesn't support you and definitely won't support them.
Yeah, still, I think for some people it's difficult to understand if this is coming like really channeling information or being connected to their soul, or if this is something that the mind is making up. So how can you differentiate? How do you feel that or sense that?
Yeah, so I always tell people, if you think your mind's making it up, what does it matter? Meaning it's all connected. You're just hearing it through layers. So if you feel that mind making it up, what's preventing you from really understanding that truth in a deeper way is pain, suffering, ego, pattern, right? So it's really about getting that mind on board with the heart. So one of the things I teach people is this simple hack of divine intelligence, which is your body, which doesn't have free will. Divine intelligence, align my mind so it follows my heart. And then you can ask the question, or then you can tune in and see what your soul has to say. You're always hearing your soul and guidance. It's just through a bunch of layers. So normally that soul and divine sounds like a statement. It's not a questioning. It's not a concern. It's like, here it is. I always imagine it as like a knock. So once you hear a knock, it's solid, right? But if you're having those thoughts or conversations that go, that's your mind and ego trying to keep you in the illusion of safety. So you kind of just want to start to pay attention, see how it lands in your body. If it's something that feels icky and sticky in your body, then it's probably pattern. If it's something that achieves lightness in your probably, it's soul. Your soul is never going to tell you anything that you don't resonate with. It will tell you things that you might be in resistance about, but it's never going to go left and you're like, no, that doesn't resonate with me. It could say go left and you're like, oh, but left is scary. I don't want to, right? So I always tell people, your soul will say, Jen, don't get on that plane. And there's no fear with don't get on the plane when you hear it or feel it. It's what happens after that. Like, oh my God, what if I don't get on the plane? Like, what am I going to do? How am I going to get where I go? Want to go? How am I going to get my family off the plane? What are people going to think? What if the plane doesn't crash? And right, like there's all of this stuff that we create around that listening. So start off small, everyone. Start off with when the phone rings, don't look at who's calling. Just tune in and go, who's calling? And then flip the phone over and see if you're right. Start to build that muscle in things that don't matter, meaning that you don't have attachment, because humans tend to make things, everything they want, like life and death. And so when you start off small, it's easier to understand your database versus when you need to know if you should get off the plane or not.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, I have this sixth sense since I was 8 years old and had a near-death experience. So I'm clairvoyant and precognitive. And for me, this feels totally different if I make something up or if it is just like I'm downloading information and am connected with my higher self. And also I get pictures, I get parts of movies and instant knowledge, as you said, words are there. And sometimes it's tricky to interpret what I'm getting, but it is not about me, because if I get it for other people, they know about that, as you said. No, it doesn't make sense for me at all. I'm just the medium, take, no, giving this information, and for the other person, it totally makes sense. And yeah, but as well, it is a training thing. So it is not like you start and then you are 100% there. It's like if you want to learn tennis, you have to play and play and play until you get better, and start with the little things that are not so important, I think, is the best way. And then you will figure out, okay, every time I'm present, I'm here, I'm aligned, then something will show up and I get information, but however that looks like for you in your body. So, and I think a lot of people at the moment are somewhere in the past or in the future or with their mind. So they are kind of have this clutter in their brain about, oh, what if I would have done something different, or what will be tomorrow, or they are distracted by TV or something else. So they are not really present, and yeah, for that being in control of themselves, what they're thinking, how they are connected to their higher self. So what can they do so that they really come into this present moment and into a state that they can be aligned to their higher
Yeah.
self?
So first of all, I always tell people to start with the penny game. So you have 100 coins, right? And you're going to have two little bins. One's for past and one's for future, right? And so when you notice that your mind or your kind of wagon wheel in your head is in past or future, you take a penny and you put it in the little container. Excuse me. And at the end of the day, I want you to notice how many coins you have left. That is your energy that you're actually utilizing to create. The present time is where things created. We created time, so it's kind of circular. That's a whole nother thing, right? But if you have, say, 100 pennies at the beginning of the day, and at the end of the day, you have 10 to be in the present, that's not a lot of energy that you're utilizing there. So you want to know kind of what you're doing. And then you also want to look at the pennies and go, where am I spending most time? Is it in the past or is it in the future? So if you're spending more time in the past, you're creating based on lack, right? And you want to start to kind of deconstruct those past experiences so you're not always kind of focused on that. When we're so focused on our past, we're trying to protect ourselves. Jennifer Bloom calls that pre-suffering. We're trying to protect ourselves from suffering, right? But when we're also in the future, we're creating based on worry, right? Based on trying to know how the book ends, which is also lack in another way. So start there. Then during your next day, when you see yourself in one of your kind of past or future buckets, you're going to pause and you're going to say this: divine intelligence, place me in the consciousness of present time. And then you're going to take action from there. And if you have to do that a million times a minute, you do it a million times a minute. Another thing that you can also notice is, or do, is to stop multitasking. Oh my God. I can do more in 15 minutes than most people can do all day long, right? I'm an amazing multitasker, but that doesn't really support being in present time and being creative and creating from that. So you want to cut down your multitasking and really come back into present. Really good multitaskers tend to have the life challenge of not enough. I'm sorry, I'm literally all hooked up in my thing. So there, that's a big challenge and big theme of disconnection from them, right? I do. I teach about moving from not enough to enough. Why? Because I've got some great tools from readjusting my own life, right? So you want to know how much you multitask, and then you want to pause. And you want to start to do one task at a time with total presence. And you want to keep pausing to go, okay, what's the next divinely inspired action here? Because that will allow you to tune in and be aware of all of the information that's being sent to you that you haven't been listening to because you're so multitasking. And you want to also allow yourself to take those actions. So I'll give you a tangible, story here. So about 10 or 15 years ago, I'm at the airport. And I'm at the check-in and my wallet is blinking at me. I was like, I don't have time to listen to you. I've got to go check out and do this and do that. And I've got all this stuff. And I'm like, I don't have time for you. So I go through security and I'm on the way to the gate and the water bottle in a refrigerator is blinking at me. I've got water. I don't need you. Stop talking to me. I got things to do. Blink, blink. I'm like, fine. I go to reach into my bag to get my wallet. And guess what, everyone? It's on the counter. And I go back, everything's there. And the woman's like, we have been calling you on the loudspeaker for over 45 minutes. And I was like, what? Right? Like, again, too busy multitasking that I can't hear the giant loudspeaker repeatedly calling me. Now, let's go back to our own lives, right? If you're so busy, if you keep going, no, 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 I don't have time to pay attention to that inner knowledge or inner wisdom, right? my verbiage, God could be on the loudspeaker and you'd be like, I can't hear you, right? So it's about slowing things down. It's about allowing yourself to be present, knowing that everything is okay, that you're okay, that all your needs and desires will be met. And one of the ways to do that is also to have that profound belief that you're being loved, supported, and provided for, no matter what, in ways that are seen and ways that are unseen, right? Again, wallet story, okay? Unseen, wallet blinking, unseen, loudspeaker. I don't hear it, right? But look at all those things that had to happen, right? For the loudspeaker to have, to kind of go, right? She had to pay attention. She had to take the time to keep doing it. She didn't just drop it in the lost and found. Like there was a whole bunch of stuff that needed to happen so I can know I was loved, protected, and supported. But if you start with that belief, you hear all of that stuff in more ease and more grace.
Yeah, wow, what a story. And so it's like the signs are getting bigger and bigger and bigger and louder, and still you're not
Right.
paying attention to that because you don't feel that it has anything to do with yourself. And I think this happens, this was a great example, but I think this happens in everybody's life that we get signs and we don't pay attention, or we think, no, this is perhaps not the right time, or it has nothing to do with me, or why should I follow this? Or we don't even mention them or remember that we have seen something. So,
Right.
um,
Right. We just go, our mind is so good at deciding what's relevant and not. And everything is relevant. And it's about understanding on a scale of how relevant it is to you in this space and time. And I think, like humans, we're kind of arrogant. We think we know everything, right? I firmly believe the more I know, the less I know, but I can still see myself doing it on a daily basis. Like, oh, no, 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 I know this, instead of really listening and really coming from a place of curiosity and really understanding or asking additional questions like, okay, so I'm feeling this. Is this fear, or is this a knowing, or is this a knowing and then it's wrapped in fear, so I'm not really paying attention to it, right? Because it's asking me to change, or it's asking me to stretch myself, or I don't want to do it because that would mean something else, or me to look at something else. You know, it's really an art to have this deep connection with yourself, and it's a practice. And I think people are under the impression that, oh, okay, so I've got my intuition, it's working, and I never have to practice it in a new way. No, this is a continuous building and a continuous unraveling of the programming that is covering your essential nature. Because babies, well, that's a complicated subject, but in theory, most of us come out of the womb, only afraid of two things: falling and loud noises. And every other fear is built up. So if we can start to deconstruct those patterns, it's not that you're not going to feel fear again. It's that you're more conscious of the choice you're going to make once you feel it and which direction you want to go.
hmm. And I totally see that we all have our filters built up by our education, by the beliefs we do have, by the culture we lived in. So it's amazing when you come from one place to another and you see, okay, this is so much, yeah, imprinted in me that doesn't make sense for another person living in another culture. So I changed, going from Germany to Portugal, and sometimes I'm here and I think, okay, this is totally different. And understanding that we have our own construction about reality. This is nothing like truth, so to say. And
Right.
therefore, of course, if we have our own filters made up by this, we never realize reality as it is. It always has to go through our filters, and a lot will be stuck there, and will not even come into our conscious mind.
Right. Yeah.
Although the subconscious mind is picking it up, and of course our soul has all the wisdom, but therefore, even if coming back, if we can see that we have to change our life, that we have to connect and get more clarity about where we really have to go, often we can't see the signs, and they can become from a loudspeaker or from someone telling us, and we are still not getting it, no?
Yeah. And I think the first step is awareness, right? On Christmas Eve, I was at my mother's with Warner and my boyfriend. And my mother's a great mother, right? But she micromanages. And in the middle of her micromanaging me, I went, huh. I turned to Warner. I was like, okay, this is why I micromanage you. And I'm really sorry. It's going to stop. My mother went, what? I was like, Mom, you asked me to do something and then you're micromanaging everything about it. She's like, well, I'm like, Mom, 53 years old. I know how to chop garlic. Right. Right. And so there's the awareness. And then you get to understand what you want to do with the awareness. And so this weekend, when New Year's Eve, when we were in the house cooking, I said, I went to go and I went, no, he's got it. Not a problem. Right. And so really it's about, okay, noticing the pattern, notice how it's impacting what you really want to create in your life, and then working internally and then externally to make the decisions to not fall into that pattern, create a new pattern, make a different choice. And it's a process. And I'm still kind of in, in awe about some of the stuff that like, oh, how did I not see that before? Like, or, ooh, I didn't even know I did that, right? And I think most people can, and sometimes I do, go into judgment, but judgment doesn't help, right? Judgment doesn't like you're already behind the eight ball. You're already creating disharmony within you. And so really to, at the end, everything comes down to expressing more love to yourself. And, as warrior energy, there would be a lot of eye rolling in the past about that. Oh, love, blah, 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 right? But it's a fundamental truth that you cannot avoid. So the main question, if you want to build this connection with yourself, is how am I going to show and express my love for myself today? And that's not about going and getting your nails done or massage. Yeah, those are great ways. But I'm talking about really from looking into the mirror to, the things you say in your head to things you do every day that are in direct contradiction with what you want to achieve and who you want to be.
Yeah, this is so true. And so let me understand a little bit more about what are special topics people come to you with, and how do you go through the process of the soul language?
Yeah. So I'm really good at helping people who want to be of big service in the world, creating that impact. So that starts internally about letting go or realigning or coming into alignment with being and doing that, which can be anything from aligning your voice to accepting your power to letting go of childhood trauma. And then we also create the external strategy. So that's really like my sweet spot. I have this ability to see a person's business and to really understand where the energetic holes in that business are, where that person is not in alignment with what they want or what they say the business does. The process of soul language identification, because that's the first step, identifying your soul languages. We do that through, and I say we because other practitioners do this as well, because I taught them to, through therapeutic kinesiology or muscle testing. So what happens is with that person's permission, my body becomes the pendulum on their soul's behalf. and their soul moves my body down a testing sheet. And then once we get those languages, we go through them and I teach that person how to connect and I ask a series of questions around their tangible life because I believe a process doesn't work if you can't utilize it every day. So that's always the first step. And then I love to create custom programs. So I could look at a person and go, okay, so we need to work on your sacred purpose because you're kind of out of alignment on that. Let's talk about your marketing because what you're saying in your marketing energetically doesn't match, or your marketing story is off because a lot of spiritual renegades, the people I work with, um, have a lot of hard time in their marketing because they teach people how to fish and they don't really know how to explain that, or they don't know how to explain what they do because they're hugely metaphysical. And they also don't want to sound like anyone else. So it always comes out the same way, right? And we have to find your little secret sauce. So that's a couple ways I work with people. I also have a couple group programs. One, which I love, Harnessing Your Greatness, which is about really kind of aligning your voice and your vision, utilizing your energy to kind of roll out that red carpet so you can actually accept and be in your spotlight. I'm a master prayer writer, so I also have a Power of Prayer program, which I teach about how to write affirmative prayers and how to use affirmative prayers as a manifestation tool. And then I also have a program called The Way of the Warrior, which is about moving from unconscious struggle warrior energy to conscious warrior energy. So unconscious warrior energy feels like you have to make war with everything. And when I say warrior energy, someone who has warrior energy will just nod their head and go, yeah, right. Um, it's one of my favorite programs because I think as a former really big unconscious warrior, it was very painful to go, can I have a pen? And people are like, why are you being so aggressive? I'm like, really? I just asked for a pen. Like, what the heck? Right. And really understanding how to utilize that energy with grace, and so you can receive what you want instead of trying to make war with it. So that's a bunch of ways I work with individuals.
Okay, so what I see as well is that a lot of people who are working as healers or with energy or in the spiritual area have this problem of marketing themselves. Definitely, they are amazing. They have amazing gifts and can really serve the world. But as soon as it comes to showing up in the world and yeah, being visible, doing the marketing stuff and doing sales, it really becomes hard. So how are you, yeah, making them more comfortable or really figure out what is the way they can do that without feeling like being this power seller or something like that?
Yeah, I think the first step with that is I think where where master healers fall down is they don't want to be like those people. They don't want to be like the gurus, right? The gurus that say, do this, and if you can't do this, then there's something wrong with you. That's a very big unconscious guru kind of tactic. And I think a lot of spiritual renegades, a lot of master healers have fallen for that. And so that also impacts their marketing. So we kind of let go of that through a series of energetic kind of processes. We also help them align their voice and their vision. So that belief of that it is their right to receive from their gifts really comes down into their central energetic channel and goes through all of their chakras. Normally when we do the process, people will go, oh, I can only feel it here. I'm like, well, if you can't feel it in your root, it's going to be hard to manifest it, right? And so we kind of work with their energy to move it down and release those beliefs that are in the way. And then it is about finding your secret sauce. Listen, I can be talking about sliced bread, right? I've had time and time again where people go, I heard your voice and I know I needed to talk to you. Why? Because my energy is aligned with what I do. So again, I can be talking about sliced bread and it doesn't matter. And I think so often people are so like, well, I have to find the right words. Everyone says in marketing, you have to find the right words. And I'm like, no, no, no. You have to find the right energy. And so then we can find the right words. And I think a lot of people are focused on their delivery systems. right? My delivery system is soul language. It's a kick-ass delivery system, but that's not my purpose. My purpose is always about connected and connection. And I'm always going to bring people back to connection. And so I think a lot of people focus on their delivery systems and they lose the understanding of what they're offering for people to transform. So I always tell clients, okay, where are your community when they first meet you? Like, what are they experiencing? We're not going to pluck their fear. We're not going to do fear marketing, but let's talk about what they're experiencing, right? So my people are experiencing, they know that there's something big. They're hitting that spiritual glass ceiling. They're feeling a little disconnection, right? Their clients are great. They're doing great things with their clients, but yet they're like, where's mine? Like they're feeling that disconnection. They might be having trouble utilizing their divine voice. There's something new that they want to say. There's something hidden there. And then where are they when they leave, right? Well, their voice and their vision align, right? They're actually speaking their divine messages of truth. They are full in their power. They understand their gifts and talents. They are deeply connected in a new way. They know that they're loved, supported, and provided for, right? So I didn't mention one tactic in that, right? So often people are like, let me tell you what I do. Let me give you all the steps. Yeah, people care about that eventually, but they really want to understand where their journey is going to be, because that's what works in marketing and works in sales. And I think the key to a sales process is non-attachment. So I think so often people make that interaction the source for them. I know that that's not the source for me. I know that it's just a resource. And so if it's not this resource, the divine's going to bring me another resource. So it's really about understanding that you're being loved and provided for and supported, and then having a conversation. But you have to have that profound belief. I also know within the first 5 minutes of talking to someone if they're a client for me, meaning I think so often people are going, okay, I want to make them my client. No, right? I have this kind of this process about understanding if energetically a client is for me. That doesn't mean that they are going to be a client, but I'm not trying to convince anyone to be a client. And I'm not going to take on anyone who's not my client, because that leads to pain and suffering. And here's the thing. If your survival needs aren't being met, and what I mean by survival needs are, you don't have food, you don't have a place to live, right? Those survival needs aren't being met. It's really hard for people to come from a place of connection and soul. So we have to get you to a place where your survival needs are being met, and then you can work on expansion, because you're not going to be able to, because you're so much in survival mode. No judgment, but let's do whatever we need to do to get you back to, okay, I don't have to worry about where food's coming or, feeding my kids at the moment. So that was a lot said for a little small question.
Yeah, but thank you so much for going deep. And um, I can understand that perhaps already some people are now in the survival mode, and perhaps because of the economy going down, more will go into that. So I would go a little bit more deeper into this topic. How can someone who feels that they are going into the survival mode or already are in there or at the edge, how can they come back into this connection to their soul, and from there, of course, create and manifest a different life? How can you guide
Yeah.
them?
I think the first step is to step into a different consciousness. So I would keep flooding the body with divine energy. So it would look like this. Divine intelligence, fill me with the feeling and knowing that I'm being loved, supported, and provided for, and I'm willing to see it in ways in my life now, right? Another way is just to keep pausing, going, I'm okay. I'm okay. There's enough. There's enough. There's enough. There's enough. There's enough, right? And also be willing to have your mind track how you're enough. So so at the beginning, several years ago, I was always saying, hey, mind, let's see how I'm enough today. Let's see how there's enough today. Let's start to see that. And I'd be like, oh, like, look at here. And things would just start to fall in my lap. And another way I think people need to kind of move out of survival is start to surround themselves with people who are not in that same survival mode. Because that will naturally, it's easier to go up into energy. We tend to just go down because it's a pattern. But when you surround yourself with energy that's like, hey, we got this, that is going to allow that your energy just to naturally kind of come up above water. Sorry, dog. Um, so those are some opportunities.
Yeah. So I also see that, for example, I'm using a gratitude exercise every day. And this means, yeah, every evening being there, sitting and also journaling, of course, what were moments that I can be grateful for. And this can be little things. There's no need that this needs to be like massive things happening to me, but like having a cup of coffee outside on the balcony in the sunlight, or having a wonderful conversation like we have at this moment, for example, or meeting someone who has such good energy, and it makes me feel good. So I think keeping track of what were these moments where you can be grateful for, where you felt enough, where you felt abundance, that is also like changing the mind and the awareness to, yeah, really what is good already in my life, and not focusing what is not working, because where we focus on there, the energy will go, and there will we create. So I think this is also a good tool to use gratitude and focus on that to make a shift. Yeah.
Agreed. But people who have warrior energy, that's going to be harder. They tend to do drive-by gratitude, which looks like this. Oh God, I'm so thankful, blah, 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 blah. But oh, by the way, I don't have blah, 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 right? Warriors are always trying to move forward. And that creates a lot of unsustainability sometimes. So if you can't do the kind of gratitude, or you're doing drive-by gratitude, that's the place where you get to pause and you get to feel the hum of divinity inside of you and expand it out, because that allows for something deeper. I love gratitude, and I love doing those gratitude steps. And you know, I think sometimes in those profound moments of gratitude, you are so in the flow. But I've been in those points of, oh my God, like I'm kind of on the floor. I don't know if I can get up. And those are the times that I think that you get to kind of really step into this weird but glorious metaphysical kind of pool and go, okay, I'm going to hand it over. I'm going to step into deep acceptance or deep surrender. I think so often in those deep times of struggle, we're wanting to something to be different so bad that we're creating all of this non-acceptance. And it's even hard to get to the little bits of gratitude. So in those times, we have to move into acceptance or surrender. And that's about understanding that I might not like what's going on, but I accept it. And I always tell my clients to activate acceptance in your heart and then offer that to the situation. And that will help transform people as well, and to kind of shift out of that deep challenge or survival mode.
Mm.
And it's practice, 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 practice. Yeah.
Yeah. If people are now interested to work with you and to experience what you're doing, how can they come in contact with you?
So I think the best way is to go on the site, soullanguage.us, and look under soul language and click the discovery session. It's free. There's no agenda. Then you can actually have one of your soul languages identified. And that will actually give you down and dirty tools right there and right then to transform your life. It will also allow you to see if we're compatible, to see if you soul languages for you. That's the best way. And of course, I have a newsletter and I love giving away free stuff and there's audios there. So I think that's the best way. And then I have a Facebook group called Spiritual Renegades where you get to kind of experience me and hang out with an amazing bunch of people and to see if my community is something that you're interested in kind of coming into.
Yeah, I will put the links in the show notes, so it's easy to just click on it and get your free session with Jennifer and really try it out and yeah, change your life. So last but not least, is there anything that I didn't ask you that you would like to share?
I mean, I think the last thing I want people to remember is that they're whole and complete. Like your soul is whole. And one of the things that makes my eyes roll is my soul is hurting. No, no, no. Your soul is whole and complete. It's your human that's crying out to be aligned with your soul, right? Your soul is whole and complete. Your divinity is whole and complete. And to remember that and to be curious about how you can express that more fully in your life. And to know that there are going to be ups and downs, and that this is kind of not like your eye color. One it like, okay, so my eye color is blue and I know that, and I never have to think about my eye color again, right? This is really about a practice and really an engagement.
Yeah, wow. Thank you so much for being my guest today and for sharing your own stories and your amazing work. It was a pleasure speaking with you today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Just a great way to start my morning. And it's just been amazing talking to you. And thank you. And thank you for the work that you're doing in the world.
Yeah. See you soon. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening or watching my podcast, Holistic Creators. If you want to know more about how I can help and support you, have a look at my website, spiritualchangemaker.com. You can also join my Facebook group, Spiritual Changemakers Community. Stay tuned for the next episode by subscribing to this channel. And you also can check the previous episodes.